Okay, I will go back to here to start trying to clarify for you what Venus and Mars is all about. These are, in astrology, 2 of the 5 personal planets. We have 10 planets, 5 personal and 5, they're not impersonal, but they're more social or generational, they call them. These are the slow planets, the generational ones. I'm not going to talk a lot about them. They are just mentioning Jupiter, Saturn, um, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. These 5 are the generational ones. But they don't have a direct effect on the personality. They're more like circumstances. But they do have a direct effect when they have a very prominent place in the birth chart, which is a different story. But the personal planets, the other 5, are the ones which really determine your character and what is going to be your individual response to what's going on in your life, and your instinct about how to respond to that. And these 5 are the Sun and the Moon, which are one of the pairs that I've covered before, but we hopefully will have a chance. These are the most important 2 phases of the personality. Our long-term goal, what we are born to become, not what we are already, the sun sign. We probably you all know your sun signs. And the moon, which is more to do with what we are born already as, which is our instinctual adjustment to life, the way we accommodate to what's going on, our feelings, our individual needs, many other things, but that's not our topic today. So these two are 2 of the personal. Then we have Mercury, which is not part of our lecture as well, but Mercury very often goes hand in hand with Venus and Mars, because that's our mind, intellect, and capacity for learning, communicating, and exchanging information. And the nervous system and the way we actually react on that level, on the mental level. We can have a separate talk about that for many hours. But Venus and Mars, Venus and Mars are the last 2, and planets mean what they mean psychologically in astrology because of where they are in the solar system. In the solar system, we have those 10 planets, and our Earth is part of them, and they are ordered in a way. So we start from the sun, which is the center of our solar system, and then the first planet which is closest to it is Mercury, the one about communication and intellect. Then after that is Venus, and then after Venus is Earth. So Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, in that order. What happens is that in between us, the Earth, because all of the astrology is Earth-based astrology, it's called geocentric, because it won't be the same if we are living on Mars. If we're living on Mars, we're going to see a different picture of the sky, and everything will be ordered in a completely different way, so it will have a different meaning for us. As we are implying the meaning of different processes in us, in the principle of synchronicity, they call it. It's not that the planets are doing something to you physically. They're not emanating some magical powers or anything like that, even though you may read this somewhere. There are many people that claim it. It's not the case. The real thing is that, yes, there are certain electromagnetic energies that are really emitted from the planets and they affect the solar system, but that's not what this is about. What it is about is that every one of these planets means something because of the place it's taking in the order of the planets in the solar system and around our Earth as well. So Venus means what it means because it's the first planet on the inside of our orbit. What does it mean inside? We're going around the sun, and that circle that we're making around the sun in our journey, inside that circle we find Venus and Mercury, and then is the sun in the center. So they're inside, they're between us and the sun. So these 2 planets are affecting us, their meaning is affecting us in that way because they're inside. Venus is about all the internal processes in the psyche, but these processes are about judgment. We have to pass judgment to what comes our way. The different experiences that we encounter, we have our feelings about them, we have our emotions about them. Many people confuse feelings and emotions. It's very tricky. The moon is about feelings. Feelings are instinctual body and, how can I say, reaction to this thing makes me feel good or bad. I'm feeling cold or hot. This is tasty or repulsive or something like that. That's on the level of feelings. Emotions take us on a different level. We start acting on our feelings and we pass a judgment to what has happened. So Venus in the astrological birth chart in every one of us is that principle which is like a code. We are coded in a particular way to respond to to the experiences, to the environment, to everything around us, with forming some sort of a taste about it. That's why Venus is about values and tastes and our value system. One of the most important things it's about is what not what how I feel about things, but what I think about them. How it's also how I feel about them, but more on a personal level. Both Venus and Mars are the most direct way we experience life and we take part into outside life. Because the sun and the moon they're very similar, but they're more internal. We can live our suns and moons, but nobody can know about that. When we come to Venus and Mars, we start participating, we start connecting, we start asserting our will and making ourselves seen and heard. And where everything starts is with Venus, because Venus decides what it wants and what it likes. Both men and women have Venus in their chart, even though it's considered to be the feminine planet. In astrology, we have two pairs of feminine and masculine. Sun and Moon are one, Venus and Mars are the other. Venus and Mars are the most popular because they're like intimate relationships and so on. But and the ingoing process is Venus. The outgoing process is Mars. Venus says, I like that bottle. To me, that bottle is beautiful. What is beautiful for me is also what Venus is about. It determines the taste about people and things and objects and aesthetics and all of those things. And Mars is the force, the principle that goes out in the world and takes it and actually physically conquers or wins or fights for literally what it wants. But the wanting happens on the Venus level. The taking happens on the Mars level. So we can have in a birth chart different combinations of Venus and Mars. One person can have Venus and Mars in the same zodiac sign, in the same house, or in a completely different houses and signs. There are so many possible combinations between them, which will color the way those two principles are expressed in the personality. Where your Venus is will tell you what is your taste, what what do you like, who and what you find attractive. The ingoing energy is an attraction kind of energy. It's a magnetic. The principle of magnetism is what Venus is about. Magnetism is the principle of pulling into yourself what you like and what you want.
And this goes for aesthetics, values,
absolutely
job,
everything. But it's the important thing about that is that something inside you is dictating. It's an instinct. It's usually not controlled, not controllable. About what is it? You are programmed in a certain way to like certain things more than others, and that puts you in a category of your own. Kind of, you have your own tribe of people that are likely to like the same things as you do, but maybe then you are not going to approach taking those things or winning those things for yourself in the same way as those people. So you can have me and Richard can have the Venus in the same sign. Later, I'm going to say how different signs and elements are, so it makes more sense concretely. But we can have in the same Venus in the same sign, which will give us a similar attitude towards beauty, aesthetics, what we are physically attracted to as well, because both of these are quite physical, because they are personal planets and they also have an effect on our looks. The ascendant has that effect, but mostly on the face, as that's the mask we wear. While Venus and Mars does have an effect on the body as well, and the general posture. And in women, for example, the Venus is determining the way she would approach her looks, and how she would want, what she wants to make out of herself to be attractive to the opposite sex. And that's a value judgment. The woman has that Venus, and she makes the decision that she makes about what kind of clothes she's going to wear, the way she's going to present herself, um, based on that pre-assumption. And she wants to attract in a particular way. So, but in order to have the relevant response, then the other person needs to be responsive to that particular Venus. And whether or not he or she will be is about where her or his Venus is, and Mars as well, and many other things in the chart, because then these are participants in the chart dynamics. And we can have, maybe that will confuse you even more, but Venus and Mars by themselves in a person can be strong or weak, can be developed or underdeveloped. So yes, your Venus and Mars are in a sign, in a house and everything else, but you may not have worked a lot with them. There may be a woman that has taken given preference to her moon sign, another relationship planet, the moon, which is more caretaking. It's not uh, Venus's eroticism, while the moon is partnership in terms of long-term partnership and taking care of her partner. So if the woman has neglected her Venus to the expense of another function, which is the moon, that can happen. Then we have somebody that's very caretaking, very like into long-term partnerships and into making the partner comfortable and so on, but not uh, taking care of the Venus function. But when we don't take it, when we don't live out a part of our chart, and we are meant to live out to a certain extent every planet, every function, then it comes out in a different way, unexpectedly. It causes us problems. It goes to the unconscious, and then it comes out into some depressions, maniacs, different sorts of problems. But let's say it's a relatively well. I'm going to assume that what I say today, everything is a generalization at the end of the day. But I think it's still helpful because you get a picture about some specific things, and when you go back home, and I'll show you if you're interested where you can calculate charts and where you can at least figure out somebody you are with or yourself, which element, water, fire, air, or earth. I'm going to go into these categories because I won't have time for every sign. Yeah, where their Venus and Mars is, and what you can roughly expect to find there as a reaction. As I found out that the majority of the problems in couples on this intimate level are to do not with some dysfunction of anybody. Nobody is dysfunctional on their separate own and wherever you place them. It's everything is couple specific or group specific. So when you have a couple or a group of people, there is a certain energy dynamic in between them that is specific mixture between the energies of those two. I cannot make a synastry chart. Synastry chart is a partner chart, one and the other combined together and make an analysis without first having worked on the individual charts of the individual people. Because it may be that one of these people has a problem, which is very personal, that has nothing to do with the other person. And they have some conflict in their personality or some complex or trouble or whatever that they need to work it on, and they're actually bringing it into the relationship. And that's what's causing the problem. Or they both can have it, or neither. But then when they combine together, there is something called egregor. I'm not sure exactly how it's called in English. Something like a mixed energy between two people, like a third energy. That's why in astrology we have another relationship chart, which is called composite. That's not a mixture between the two charts, which is the most usual one. It's one third chart. So we have person one, person two, and then we have the composite chart, which is like the midpoints of the positions of you make out of that one third chart, which is the chart of the relationship. This chart is only valid as long as there is still a relationship between those two people. The moment they separate or they're not together anymore, then that chart is not relevant. It shows the dynamics of the relationship itself, as if the relationship is a third person in there. Yeah, something like that can be done as well. But in order to do that, you have to look into the individuals first. Okay, Mars, just to go quickly out of this, just to clarify that the reason Mars is the outgoing energy is that that's the first planet outside of our orbit. So that's immediately after Earth. And that's the principle of outgoing energy, of projecting what we have, including the muscular force, the body, how we, because that's what we have in our disposal as a tool to act out our wishes and wants and desires. So that's why Mars is related to the physical energy and the mode of expression of that energy. But it's not passing any judgment. That's why they never have to be separated, these two. Because in order to have a Mars function that goes out and does something or conquers something, something before that must have decided what it wants, and that's the Venus. So you can't just say to a person, oh, your Mars is in Scorpio, you must be very sexual. Well, come on, yeah, that's the mode of expression usually of that sign in that function. It's usually interested in this as a way of expressing its physical energy and interacting with another person. But who knows what are the what is it that this what Venus stands behind that Mars, and what is it that it actually wants. Mars only tells us how, what is our approach of going out and getting, which is why it's also the aggression in us, the anger, the mode of expressing anger and aggression, and how we fight. If we are to fight, for example, in a couple, that can give you clarity about that.